The war in Ukraine and the massive wave of Russian missile strikes overnight, targeting cities across the country. The top spokesman for the National Security Council, John Kirby, is standing by live. Foreign correspondent James Longman starts us off. Good morning, James.
Yeah, good morning, George. This is the largest attack on Ukraine since the beginning of the year, and Russia fired 6 hypersonic missiles, which Ukraine says it's proof that they're running low on more conventional weapons. This is as the battle for Bakhmut rages on.
Overnight chaos in Ukraine, with over 80 missiles launched by Russia in a massive attack targeting the country's energy infrastructure. The military saying 8 Iranian-made drones were also launched. Ukrainian officials saying Russia launched 6 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, the biggest number in a single strike since the start of the war. 9 people killed and at least a dozen injured. Ukrainian authorities say shelling damaged the last line feeding the Zapparysha nuclear plant, and it's now running on diesel generators. President Zelensky saying in a statement, "It's been a difficult night. The enemy fired 81 missiles in an attempt to intimidate Ukrainians again," adding the occupiers can only terrorize civilians. That's all they can do, but it won't help them. This as the battle rages in Bakhmut.
There are rumors of a Ukrainian retreat from Bakhmut, but this is the road that leads to the city. It's been very active all day, and it doesn't feel like they want to give it up anytime soon.
The injured are rushed out here to be treated by head surgeon Yuri. Some of those who've chosen to stay, he says, are Russian sympathizers.
This is the fascinating nuance of this war. This doctor, who supports Ukraine, still has to save their lives.
As a doctor, I have a duty, he says, but as a human, I'm completely against it. Valery supports Ukraine, but he couldn't get out. Shrapnel hit him in the shoulder.
What is Bakhmut like now? What's left of it?
Nothing, he says. The city is gone.
Now, some Western intelligence officials believe Russia may have control of as much as 50% of Bakhmut, but Ukraine says it's using this time to inflict maximum losses on the enemy. George.
Okay, James, thanks. Let's bring in the top spokesman for the National Security Council, John Kirby. John, thanks for joining us again this morning. What more can you tell us about this barrage overnight?
Seems like it's at least dozens of missiles. I know the Ukrainians have reported over 80. We certainly are in no position to refute those claims. It was definitely a large barrage of missiles across at least 6 cities and certain other oblasts across the country, all the way as far west as Lviv, which is right on that near the Polish border. It also appears, George, that they were definitely targeting civilian infrastructure. We know that there were some casualties where missiles hit residential structures, but it appears as if the targets were civilian infrastructure, electricity, and the heat, of course. And we think 40% now of the population of Kyiv now is without heat because of these strikes overnight. We're also deeply concerned about the proximity of strikes to the Zapparysha nuclear power plant, which is right now on backup generator power. That is not a good thing for a nuclear power plant to have to use power that is off-site like that. So we're deeply concerned about that as well.
What does this tell you about the Russian strategy? Is it a sign of strength or weakness?
I don't know that I would subscribe this to strategy other than, and I would agree with the Ukrainians, that he's just simply trying to brutalize the Ukrainian people. This is of a piece of the kinds of strikes that he's been doing now over the last 2 or 3 months. In fact, the last one, nearly this size, was just a couple of weeks ago. It's just a matter of knocking out the power, knocking off the heat, and trying to brutalize the Ukrainian people. It's hard to look at these strikes, George, and just look at the scope of them and say, well, here's the strategy.
Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines says that Russia appears to be digging in for a long war. What are the implications of that?
Well, obviously, the implications are more death and more destruction to the Ukrainian people, and nobody wants to see that. We don't know exactly how long this war is going to last, but we certainly can't wave off the possibility that it could go on for some months in the future. We know that the Russians are planning to conduct more offensive operations here when the weather gets better. We're trying to use this time to make sure that the Ukrainians are ready for those assaults and actually are ready to conduct offensive operations of their own. We do think the next 4 to 6 months is going to see more vicious fighting on the ground in Ukraine.
How long can the Ukrainians hold out in the face of these barrages?
I think they've surprised everybody for how well they've done over the last year. What I can tell you is the United States and our allies and partners are going to make sure that they have all the capabilities, the training, and the systems that they need to continue to fight for as long as it takes.
Finally, I do want to ask you about that attack on the Nord Stream pipeline last year. And some intelligence reports now suggest this was done by pro-Ukrainian forces. Is that your conclusion?
Actually, we don't have a conclusion right now, George. There's 3 ongoing investigations by 3 European countries. They are not concluded. They have not finished their work, and we certainly aren't going to get ahead of that. We do believe this was an act of sabotage, but beyond that, we just don't have any firm conclusions.
But not the Russians, right?
Again, I don't want to get into predicting here. We see no indications that the Russians were culpable. But again, there's ongoing investigations, and I want to let them finish that work.
John Kirby, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.